Hello and welcome. This is the newsroom for today, Wednesday, May 12, 2021. We're broadcasting to you on E1, Scar TV, NTN, and Tarsi TV in Bartica. In the headlines, 2 foreigners who were attempting to set up an illegal concrete plant in Guyana have been ordered to leave the country. Police are on the hunt for a taxi driver who raped a teenager on Tuesday night. The Health Minister, Dr. Frank Anthony, says mask wearing in office is necessary due to COVID-19 now being airborne.
If you are working in an indoor environment, then it's necessary for you to keep your mask on all the time.
From growing up in a tent, single mom Crystal Lamb now runs a thriving business. And in sport, COVID-19 forces yet another cancellation of the Allianz Pompey Invitational, and former national cricketer Stephen Jacobs gives his take on players the Guyana Amazon Warriors should sign at the CPL draft. With the news, I'm Neil Marks. We're glad you could join us. 2 foreigners who were attempting to set up an illegal concrete plant in Guyana have been ordered to leave the country by the government. While one remained in Guyana on a work permit after being fired by his former employer, the other has overstayed his 30-day visitor's visa. Both men have been accused of defying government instructions and abusing government officials. Kurt Campbell has our report.
Hours after Immigration Support Services revoked the work permit of Ian Jones, a director of the company setting up an illegal concrete plant in Guyana, Superior Concrete Incorporated, another director has been given 24 hours to leave the country. The director is Richard Austin Shamlin, the same man who was seen abusing housing officials of the Central Housing and Planning Authority on Tuesday.
I'm happy to meet with you guys, but the private media is not the government agency. You guys are taking a government action right now. It is not for public consumption. So I'm happy to meet with you. I'm happy to meet with them, but we're not going to do this with the media present. It's time to leave them. No. Thanks very much.
The newsroom understands that Shamlin, who was granted a 1-month visitor's visa when he entered the country, was found to have overstayed on his visa. As a consequence, he was written to by Immigration Support Services and notified that he has 24 hours to pack up and leave. Failure to honor the notice of departure will see him being deported. Meanwhile, in a previous letter, the government gave another director, Ian Jones, 7 days with effect from May 12, 2021 to depart Guyana. The Immigration Department discovered that Jones' services were terminated by his previous employers, an oilfield company, but he continued to work in Guyana on the same work permit. As such, the government moved to cancel the work permit and extension of stay with the support of his previous employer. A third contravention order was served on the company on Tuesday by the Central Housing and Planning Authority after it was found that they illegally constructed a concrete plant in the community without the requisite permissions from the relevant authorities, including the Environmental Protection Agency and the Mayor and City Council. The newsroom understands that when the first order was issued to the company, it was Jones who tore it up and discarded it. In addition, the City Engineer Department of the Georgetown Mayor and City Council, MNCC, has asked the 3 foreigners to cease and remove all unauthorized works immediately. Mayor Hubert Narain has said, however, that the council intends to approach the High Court for an injunction to be granted to halt the operations. When the newsroom visited the area on Wednesday, there was no one in sight. All works had stopped and the MCC vehicles that were previously on the premises were removed. The newsroom had reported that the facility is being set up by 3 foreigners who have incorporated a local company. Apart from Shamlin and Jones, the other director is Maxwell Snow. Snow was the person who received the contravention order on Tuesday from the housing officials. For the newsroom, Kurt Campbell.
Police are looking for a taxi driver who reportedly raped a female passenger on Tuesday night. Police headquarters noted that the alleged rape occurred in Region 7 at around 11 p.m. It is alleged that the suspect failed to take the teenager to her desired destination and instead drove some distance away where the rape was committed. A report was made to the police and efforts are being made to arrest the driver. With the government signaling the start of the long-touted electoral reform process, the dissenting views across the political divide on a new voters list has once again arisen. Here's Kurt Campbell with more.
Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs Anil Nadlal, in a recent interview with the newsroom, threw his support behind the August 2019 judgment by Chief Justice Acting Roxanne George, in which she ruled that while house-to-house registration is not unlawful and is constitutional, the data garnered from the registration exercise must be merged with the existing National Register of Registrants database. Nandlal, who will oversee the drafting of the reforms which will make its way to Parliament for debate and a subsequent approval, believes the Chief Justice's ruling was clear. The interpretation is that once a person is registered, there is no law that allows for the person's name to be removed from the register, making the political opposition's call for periodic house-to-house registration exercises as contemplated irrelevant.
We have to clarify whether we have continuous registration in this country or whether we have to do house-to-house at periodic intervals. The two do not go together. If it's a continuous cyclical registration process, which I understand that is what exists in Guyana, then you can't stop the cycle and have a house-to-house at the whim and fancy of some political party. Thirdly, we have to make very clear, and the Chief Justice has done so in a decision. Only this morning, I was looking at the court order, where the Chief Justice says that you cannot remove a person's name on the list because that person is not resident in Guyana. Residency is not a qualification to vote. Citizenship is.
But opposition-nominated Commissioner of the Guyana Elections Commission, GECOM, Vincent Alexander, believes that this ruling cannot be upheld, and through the electoral reform process, a legal system must be put in place to ensure that there is a periodic renewal of the voters' list.
Our first and major concern is dealing with the register of registrants. We are of the view that we are in a conundrum because of the legal ruling of the court, and that the legislature has to find some mechanism that will allow GECOM to be able to go to ground zero and create a new register of registrants periodically. That's our major concern.
Alexander's comments came moments after a meeting among the 6 commissioners and the chairman of GECOM to discuss the support for Guyana's highly touted electoral reform process, where the International Republican Institute was aborted. Nandala had said that the reforms to be agreed on will not be in favor of any political party. Last week, the United States Embassy in Guyana announced its support for an 18-month project to support the capacity of GECOM and the Attorney General's chambers regarding electoral reform. One day later, Nandlal acknowledged the project after meeting Resident Program Director of the International Republican Institute, Dorata Razi, and the local program coordinator, Sarah Barrett, at his chambers. But Commissioner Alexander believes that this is not enough, and there should be direct correspondence from the government to GECOM, and at the minimum, a parliamentary decision before proceeding with the project. He said the meeting was aborted for clarity with all stakeholders. However, the government-nominated commissioners feel different on the issue. Speaking with the newsroom by telephone Tuesday evening, Commissioner Sesgun Raj said the objections raised were misguided.
GECOM is not an agency that is responsible for changing laws. It does not have that power. It does not have the power of reform of the electoral laws or anything. It's an agency that executes policy or executes the legislative program or the legislation that is put together by Parliament. So I don't understand the position taken by them.
Through this project, GECOM, the Attorney General's chambers, and Guyanese CSOs will collaboratively consolidate and improve local electoral and constitutional law knowledge, establish an internal timeline to address electoral reform, improve collaboration for joint advocacy actions, and prioritize electoral and constitutional law issues while promoting reform through citizen engagement. The IRI has committed to liaising with the Canadian High Commission as well as the Indian High Commission, both of whom have already pledged assistance to Guyana in this endeavour, and will coordinate with those offices to avoid duplication and to ensure the best use of the resources are available. For the newsroom, I'm Kurt Campbell.
A hostel in East Bank Demerara couple is in a traumatized state after they were Tuesday night tied up, beaten and robbed by 2 bandits who were armed with guns. According to a police report, the 50-year-old victim, a taxi driver, said he had just secured his shop at the house and was feeding his dogs in the yard at around 10:40 p.m. when he was attacked by 2 men who forced him into his house using the back door. At the same time, the victim was gun-butted and received lacerations to his head. Both the victim and his wife were tied up with a cloth while the bandits ransacked their house. They escaped with a Samsung S8 cellular phone valued at $80,000, a Samsung J3 cellular phone valued at $40,000, a Samsung 65-inch smart television, a quantity of gold jewelry estimated value at $500,000, and $1,200 in cash. Investigations are ongoing. Still ahead on the newsroom, the health minister says mask wearing in offices is now necessary due to airborne COVID-19. And Guyana observes International Nurses Day. Back, you're watching the newsroom. Updated guidance from the United States Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, has indicated that the coronavirus is an airborne threat. As such, Health Minister Dr. Frank Anthony has related during his COVID-19 update that it is necessary to keep the mask on when working in indoor settings.
There have been a long discussion pertaining to aerosols and its role in the current infection. And I think more and more the reputable international agencies that deals with epidemics have concluded that aerosols play a very significant role in transmission, especially in indoor environments. And so we too have to take the new evidence into consideration, and we have to keep warning people that if you are working in an indoor environment, then it's necessary for you to keep your mask on all the time, because you don't know who you're interfacing with, and you don't know what is circulating in that indoor environment's air. So that's something that people would have to keep thinking about when they're in indoor environments. Outdoor, it's a little bit less of a risk, and that is because you have airflow. And so aerosols cannot remain suspended if you have continuous airflow. So in an outdoor environment, those aerosols would quickly be dispersed.
Meanwhile, the health minister also gave an update on the local vaccination rollout. According to him, at the end of Tuesday, 159,951 persons had received their first dose of one of the vaccines, while 16,004 persons received both their first and second doses. Now, a 26-year-old man who police did not name is in custody and will likely face a charge of damage to property. He's accused of smashing the windshields of two vehicles and destroying other household items in a fit of rage as a friend gave shelter to his scared wife. According to a statement from the police, the man went to Westminster Parfait Harmony, West Bank, Demerara, at a house of a 63-year-old vendor where he verbally abused her and his wife, who was staying at the house of the elderly woman. The two women, who were alone at the time, became afraid and hid inside a bedroom. Police said the suspect picked up some cement blocks in the yard and used it to smash the windscreens of a car and a canter and two rear-view mirrors. He then went into the house and continued to throw bricks, damaging a washing machine and several louver panes. The total value of the damage caused is estimated at $526,000. A report was made and the police visited the scene, where the suspect was arrested and taken to the Parfait Harmony police station, where he remains in custody. Minister of Public Works Juan Edgell says the government has been informed by the government of India that several companies have pre-qualified to build the $10.4 billion Ogle to Eccles Road. Minister Edgell made this disclosure at Tuesday's commissioning of Hunter Street in Georgetown. The minister noted that Guyana can now move forward to execute the final round of bidding, with the expectation of contract award by the last quarter of this year. Minister Edgell said the massive undertaking is part of the government's development agenda to create access to new lands for housing, farming, and business. Once completed, the road will also ease traffic woes along the East Bank corridor.
And those companies have been pre-qualified, so we could now complete the final round of bidding, and we expect a contract by the last quarter of this year for the building of the 4-lane from Ogle all the way to Eccles. That road will continue with a 4-lane from Eccles to Diamond, which is a different road from what you are hearing right now, being built by the Ministry of Housing. And then we'll continue from Diamond to Tamiri with the intent of being able to link both airports. Ogle and Tamiri will be linked with a 4-lane highway, opening up new lands in the back for housing and for other development.
For more than 13 years, nurse Althea Bristol has held steadfast to the oath she took to care for patients. On International Nurses Day, observed on May 12, she shared what it has been like working at the Georgetown Public Hospital and how she and her colleagues had to quickly adapt to the COVID-19 pandemic to maintain patient care and help fight the deadly disease.
As a nurse at GPHC, you don't usually stay in one place, so you have a feel of all the areas. So medical, surgical, COVID nurse, maternity, accident and emergency, it depends where you need it. In a nutshell, it was a fast transition, not by choice, but it's basically how nurses work. We adapt. We see the situation, regardless if our lives are threatened or not, we just fall into place because our first love is caring for persons. So for the past year, it was kind of difficult, but again, here we are standing, so we adapted. You have to be so much more aware of your surroundings and persons, and especially those with what we call like the flu-like symptoms. You would not have been aware of those in the past because it's a common cold, but now you have to be more vigilant in terms of the persons accessing the hospital. That has cut out somewhat, so that's better for us. Not so many persons milling around, just being there. But all in all, the change has been, how to describe it? Good, you should say. Depends on how you look. Depends on who's looking at it and how you're looking at it. It's been good. At the maternity section, we have the transition and the isolation unit. So if they come in and they have signs, or depends on the area that they would come from, and you suspect that it's a highly populated area with COVID patients, then there's a transition area where they go, they're swabbed, await results. If they're positive, then they go into the isolation, depends on how far in pregnancy they are. If they're not, then they go up to the Ocean View, Infectious Disease Hospital, Liliendal, or they go to the open ward. Outside of that, we have they come through the accident and emergency. There's a triage area there too, where they're triage in terms of checked for the infection and await results there before being sent off to whichever area. But we have nurses assigned to those areas specifically. You try not to interact too much different from the other patients because remember, we don't want to stigmatize anybody. It's the same thing as we encourage everybody. You're hand washing, you wear your mask, all right, or you sanitize. When you're dealing with them, if body fluids have to be passed, of course you'll put on your gloves. So you don't have to be in gloves all the time, because the myth about wearing gloves is that when you have the gloves, you feel a false sense of security. Hence, you put yourself at greater risk. So you wear the gloves when necessary if you know your body fluids will be passed. Otherwise, in that, you sanitize, you hand wash, but you always keep your masks on. If they're coughing too much, then we have the N95 mask that we use. If you have to do intubation or anything, you use that mask. But otherwise than that, the regular mask, that's good. We get complaints from all over the world, fine. But I think Guyanese nurses are poorly treated compared to other countries, I guess, because of the, one for better word, lack of understanding of what nursing is all about. Yes, we like to say we're the first persons people see when they're born, babies, and the last when they die, which is truth. And even in between, then we're there to give care. And we would like for persons to appreciate, yes, we know that there are the ups and downs, the pros and cons to everything. Yes, in every organization, you have those that you would like, those that you would like, but in general, what we offer to persons, nobody else can give it, because in the pandemic, so many other persons were fumbling for their jobs, but the nurses had to be there. There wasn't a choice. We did not have a choice. We just had to fall in. We had to just get up and keep moving. And we would want to be appreciated, not just by being given items, but being respected in general. When you're speaking about nurses or nursing, if they want to give donations, whatever it is, but let it come from the heart for the love of what we do. And just to say thank you.
Now, as the world observes International Nurses Day, President of the Guyana Nurses Association, Cleopatra Barcoy believes there needs to be a targeted approach in Guyana to not only train more nurses, but to ensure that those trained and registered nurses remain and work in the country. She said shortage is among the issues facing nurses who continue to give their service amid the challenges brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. But more importantly, with efforts already afoot to address the shortage of nurses, Barcoy said a retention plan and a strategy to retain the nurses is needed.
Nurses continue to migrate despite the pandemic, and that left the nursing workforce in Guyana at a great disadvantage. And one of the issues is that we probably might be overstaffed in one area, but there is need for nurses right across Guyana. In fact, the International Council of Nurses said that 1 in every 6 nurses will retire in the next 10 years. And I know Guyana is a part of that. Apart from that, COVID has allowed so many deaths in the nursing workforce, over 2,000 across the globe. We in Guyana, we had 4. Thank God it's not more than that.
That was President of the Guyana Nurses Association, Cleopatra Barcoy. During an interview with the Newsroom on Wednesday, Barcoy said based on projections coming out of discussions between the Guyana Nurses Association and the Nursing Council, some 1,700 nurses will need to be trained over the next 5 years. This is based on the migration statistics and the projection for nurses who will retire annually. Barker said this is why a strategy to ensure they remain to offer care and services to the local population is important, lest Guyana is confronted with a grimmer situation linked to a shortage of nurses. A 2011 report by the World Health Organization had addressed the issue of nurse migration in Guyana and offered guidelines and plans for relevant human resource development and management, in addition to support and evidence for decision making. Barcoy said the migration of nurses has left the local nursing workforce at a great disadvantage.
So the main issue really is the shortage of nurses and the need for a retention plan, for a strategy to retain our nurses. Because nurses will leave, we need to train about 1,700 plus nurses in the next 5 years, and not only train them, but we need to ensure that they remain to offer care and services to our population.
She explained that there are over 3,000 nurses currently registered in Guyana.
Now, having nurses unregistered don't mean that these nurses are working here in Guyana, because some nurses would have gone abroad, but they working in the nursing arena abroad, but they still maintain their registration in case of any emergency.
There are 4 nursing schools in Guyana, 3 state-owned and 1 private. Barcoy said on average a total of 125 nurses are trained by these institutions yearly. She also spoke about the need for greater incentives to be offered to local nurses and for attention to be paid to the psychological effect the job can have on them.
But that's not the issue. The issue is the nurses are leaving.
Right. Barcoy served as a nurse for well over 30 years and went from a nursing assistant to a registered nurse with a nursing education that includes a master's degree. She thanked all nurses for their continued dedication and faithful service.
I probably just want to say thanks to the nurses. Not many people stop to say thanks. And I want to say thank you to all the nurses across the length and breadth of Guyana for your dedicated and faithful service that you have given, not only in the pandemic, but even before, but much more now in the pandemic.
She also reminded that the responsibility to be trained lies with every individual nurse. For the Newsroom, Kurt Camp.
You're watching the Newsroom. Crystal Lam, a 28-year-old single mother of 2, runs a successful business specializing in the large-scale production of uniforms for businesses. You'd think she had connections and support to launch into the business world, but that's hardly the case. Growing up, life was no walk in the park for Crystal, as circumstances forced her family to live in a tent for half her life. But she battled all that was thrown at her and 4 years ago set up her own company, Crystal Lam Designs, the clothing factory, for which she is now the Chief Executive Officer. Crystal recently spoke with the Newsroom at her Linden Region 10 location.
Hey guys, my name is Crystal Lam. I am a single mother and I am the CEO and the proprietor of Crystal Lam Designs, the uniform company. Hey, welcome. Come in, guys, come. Growing up I think like many other Guyanese, it was quite a challenge. Some of my challenges might be different from some of the challenges that you would have faced. But I actually grew up and I made a post which stated that for the early parts of my life, or the probably first few years, I actually lived in what we can now call today a tent, a big tent. And that is really where my journey started. So my dad was ill for a number of years. My mother was a stay-at-home mom. And my dad fell ill and he couldn't work. And that forced us into a situation where, you know, we were forced to set up tent in, not a jungle, but it was surrounded by bushes. And that is where we lived until he was better and we were able to elevate and build a home. So that is where Crystal Lamb's story all began. So from a tender age, probably of 12, I knew what I wanted to do. I didn't even know it was called a vision or sort of, but I always envisioned having this factory. So I come from a line of very talented tailors. My dad was a tailor. I had cousins and uncles who were also tailors, and they were very talented. So from a very tender age, I envisioned having a factory where we all came together because I felt like there was so much more that they could have been doing, or we all could have been doing if we came together. So even before I was 16, I think I was just about 10 or 12. I didn't know what a vision was. I didn't know what it entailed. But what I did know is that I envisioned having this factory and we were all there and we were working together. But you know, society and life has a way of programming us. So I went to school, and for a few years I got into high school. You need to decide what stream you're going to go in and all of that. And I decided that I wanted to be a doctor. I guess that was programmed into me because, you know, all the prestige that comes with it. Oh, a doctor, a lawyer, the regular career fields. So I went into science stream and I thought I had this aspiration of being a doctor, and that was it until I left high school. Upon leaving high school, I realized that, you know, beginning to know yourself a bit more. You're at the age where you're a little older and you understand life a bit more. And I began developing my own identity. And I recalled this vision that I had. And I was like, you know, I don't really want to be a doctor. That's not what I want to do. What I want to do, I want to have a factory. I want to be an entrepreneur. Stability. Like I said, I'm a single mom. I became a mother at the age of 19. And wanting a bit more stability with business, it's all well and good, but it has a lot of things we can't predict. It's not as stable as having a 9-to-5. So I wanted some more stability and I decided to apply to the bank. So my first job was at Citizens Bank. That was in 2011. While I was at Citizens Bank working there, I realized that they imported uniforms. So we were there and we had people coming in from Trinidad to take our measurements and to basically supply us with uniforms. And I was like, but why is this so? So from there I decided to do some research and I realized that we didn't have a uniform company in Guyana. We didn't have a company that specialized in mass customization where you fit a great number of people to their size. You take individual measurements and you fit not just a small, medium, large, but it's customized for everybody. So from then I got the idea to make this my niche. I went into a few companies who were very eager because, you know, they didn't have this service available. So we have these HRs who don't know much about fabric type, they don't know what kinds of fabric, they need help in sorting styles out and all of that. So it was an idea that was very welcomed. You know, you have to be confident in yourself. You have to have a vision and you have to be confident in your abilities. You also have to trust the process, which is something that I had to come to understand.
When the newsroom returns, the financial weather and bridge report. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching the newsroom. It's time for sport, and we begin with athletics. June 19 was earmarked for the Allian Pompey Invitational Track Meet to be staged in Guyana at the National Track and Field Center at Lenora on the west coast of Demerara. However, numerous reasons, many of which stem from the COVID-19 pandemic, forced the founder, Guyanese Allian Pompey, to cancel the international event for a second successive year.
It's with a tremendous amount of sadness that I'm here today to announce that this year's edition of the API will not be held as scheduled on June 19th. There are several reasons we had to cancel the event. Mainly, one of the effects or byproducts of the COVID-19 pandemic, which doesn't allow us to properly prepare to host an international competition of this caliber. While we can't safely host a competition this year, the API organization is still working on a way to engage with the Guyanese public, its sponsors and supporters, and the Guyanese athletes. So over the next few days, or maybe within the next 2 weeks, we'll make an announcement of how we plan on doing that. And I think while it wouldn't replace the API competition for this year, I think it would be a meaningful enough compromise. When the event started in 2016, it was used as an Olympic qualifier for not just Guyanese Olympians, or not just Guyanese athletes, but athletes from around the Caribbean. And actually we had athletes from Africa and Europe that have competed at the meet, so it was quite an international event. With the Tokyo Games postponed by a year, we were also hoping for a similar event this year whereby athletes can qualify for the Olympic Games. I know a lot of our national athletes and the athletes from the Americas, mainly South America and the Caribbean, had it on their calendar as a qualifying event. So this affects quite a number of people. We felt that it was important to make this announcement now as opposed to hold on for a few more days or even a few more weeks, because the preparation of these athletes are greatly impacted. And so we decided to announce today that despite all of our efforts, and it's definitely a group effort, the sponsors of the event up until the very last minute were completely committed to hosting the event. It's just that, as I said, the situation that none of us can control dictated that we have to cancel it. I must say I am personally devastated by this news and having to be the person to make this announcement. But I do support all of our athletes and continue to wish them the absolute best in their season and in making the Olympic qualifying standard. And I look forward to seeing them by whatever available means. We'll be able to watch the Olympics this year, and hopefully we'll be back next year and be better and bigger than ever, and continue to provide a stellar experience for everyone.
The newsroom's Akeem Green chats now with former Guyana Amazon Warriors and Jamaica Talawas player Stephen Jacobs about the 11 players retained by the Amazon Warriors ahead of the 2020 Hero Caribbean Premier League draft. Jacobs also gives his take about the type of players that are needed to take Warriors over the line.
And now I'm back to the thick of things where everybody wants to know. There hasn't been a finalized date for the draft as yet. I can remember the press conference they spoke about probably May 26th. Doesn't seem that will happen. Maybe early June it could possibly happen. But those slots need to be filled. It's going to be a lot of talk on Facebook. People want A.B. Villiers, all these guys. Looking at the struggles we had last season, obviously going to be playing again in St. Kitts one venue. What are some players, some type of players I would say you would think the Amazon Warriors would want to rope in?
Yes, so not just last year, I think it's probably a year before, or even last year, I really wanted to see Fak as the man at the top of the order. I just called that name. He'd probably be in the draft, but a dynamic opener that could, because for me, I think openers coupled with the wicket takers, you know, and those fast bowlers actually single-handedly win games for franchises. So I'll think, you know, a dynamic opener. I'm just calling that name because I think he's a really, really good fit to that team. I'm seeing the third slot available. I'm looking at somewhere like a Ben Cotton, you know, a nice all-rounder that could actually finish it, coupled with Shepherd already, who's already there. I really wish if they can bring back Kimo Paul because of what I said before, being the heart and soul of a team and what he can bring on and off the field. I'm not sure if Rutherford will be available because, you know, words that, you know, persons are actually heading to other teams. But if he can come back, will be good. I'm thinking also of Christopher Barnwell. I think he's been, you know, really, really good throughout the Super 50 for the last couple of years in that number 6 position because of what he can bring in that role, finishing in innings, because you have the likes of Puran, Hetty Meyer, you know, the Brandon Kings in that 3, 4, 5 slot already. A really good fast bowler, young fast bowler from Guyana, Niall Smith. I think he's, you know, he has the pace. And I think playing in sink kits, right, where the, you know, the boundaries are really short, I think the fast bowler will probably be a little more effective in sink kits. We already have, you know, the 3 spinner slots, right? So also coupled with that, Angie McCarthy, Jonathan Carter, Jason Mohammed, those 3 names, you know, have been really, really good throughout the over the past couple of years in Super 50 cricket, and I think that we would need one of those in the middle, right, just to lend support, you know, even if they're not playing at the start or what's not just the middle or the batsman. I think that would probably answer most of your Warrior slots there.
Cricket West Indies, CWI, has announced that annual retainer contracts have been offered to all 13 members of the existing senior panel of umpires for the new contract period, April 1st, 2021 to March 31st, 2022. The lone Guyanese is Nigel Duguid. The significant reduction in regional cricket in the last contracting period due to the impact of COVID-19 has resulted in no changes being made to the list of umpires to be offered contracts. CWI invests annually in the panel of umpires due to their fundamental role in ensuring that the spirit and integrity of cricket is preserved and that the highest possible qualified fair play is upheld in the field. The senior panel of umpires being offered retainer contracts are Zahid Bassarat, Jonathan Blades, Gregory Brathwaite, Dayton Butler, Nigel Duguid, Patrick Gustard, Danish Ramdani, Leslie Reifer, Verdane Smith, Christopher Taylor, Carl Tucker, Jacqueline Williams, and Christopher Wright. Cricket West Indies Chairman of Selectors Roger Harper says he's hopeful for some changes to the current selection policy of Cricket West Indies. Harper, speaking on Barbadian radio program Mason and Guests, said on Tuesday he could not disclose what areas he would want to change, but he is in agreement for tweaks in relation to the terms and conditions in securing a contract.
A large portion of the criteria for awarding contracts means players must participate in at least 50% of the matches, along with other statistical factors in regards to average and also fitness. Our considerations that go into the selection of who is awarded a CWI Central Retainer contract. All of the aforementioned are possibly some areas, Harper said, might be tweaked.
Do you like the criteria? Would you tweak it in any way if you had to? Or if you had the power to?
Yeah, I think that is a work in progress. That will be, there will be some changes to it moving forward, hopefully.
So what changes would you recommend?
Well, I'm not at privilege to discuss that at the moment.
The lead selector also clarified how the evaluation period for the awarding of contract works. According to CWI, the evaluation period for the 2021-2022 contracts covered performances and statistics from April 1st, 2020 to April 1st, 2021. This was also supported by statistics from the previous 2019 to 2020 season.
The evaluation period was 2020 to 2021. And if the stats in 2019 to 2020 is better than 2021, for that player, only then only then is it used to bolster that particular player's averages, stats, right? Only then. So let me explain in greater detail. If in 2020 to 2021, a batsman averages 50, and in 2019 to 2020, the batsman averages 40, the averages in 2019 to 20 does not count because its average in 2020 to 2021, which is the evaluation period, is higher. If, however, it were reversed and the player averaged 40 in 2020 to 2021 and 50 in 2019 to 2020, then that 50 will be used to bolster the average that is lower. So give him a higher average so he gets a higher rating.
Harper also addressed the allocation of a white ball contract to Darren Bravo over Shimon Hetmeyer.
The first priority is the immediate evaluation period. If the period prior to that is better than the immediate evaluation period, it is used to bolster the player's stats. So based on the criteria and number of matches, which is 50% of the matches available, Bravo didn't need to have stats from the year before.
But do you think that Bravo's, if we look at
bear in mind, I did not invent this criteria. It's been around for a while.
It must be noted that a non-allocation of a contract does not mean a player will not be considered for selection. Following the announcement of international retainer contracts, the 6 regional franchises will now complete the process of awarding their 15 contracts, with a professional franchise player draft due to take place on Tuesday, the 25th of May at 15 hours. For the Newsroom, Akim Green.
After several meetings and consultations with experts, the decision to modify the dates of the first Junior Pan American Games that was scheduled to take place between September 9 and 19, a new date has finally been confirmed. It will now be held from November 25th to December 5th in Colombia. The organizers want to give more time for the organizing country and the participating nations to advance in their vaccination process. This will allow more delegations and the largest number of people to inoculate against COVID-19 when the Games begin. Guyanese table tennis player Miguel Wong has already qualified for the Games. The first Junior Pan American Games will bring together more than 3,800 athletes from 41 countries who will compete in 39 disciplines. The gold medalists in each sport will automatically qualify for the Santiago 2023 Pan American Games. That brings us to the end of our broadcast for this evening. I'm Neil Marks. Remember, you can get the latest breaking news and sport at Newsroom.gy. Take care.